Thank you. Do feel free to interrupt me. It's early morning, so whenever there's something, just interrupt in the middle. I use the same one. I actually have been talking quite a while this week. It seems that the whole mobility as a service is gaining quite a lot of traction, and movement is still growing, which is sometimes even surprising how big of an attention it's been getting. I used the same one 2 days ago. I was in Brussels talking to the car dealerships of Europe, all of the big CEOs, and before that to the car OEMs. And I used this as a first slide, and their faces were a bit different than yours with that question. I'm being called around the world father of this mobility as a service, and it's been overwhelming to see how much attention and how much it is. Even the car dealers nowadays tend to understand that there's a change coming on, and it is quite big. And I'll try to first kind of understand and tell you a little bit about what's happened here, and why I think it is happening, and why I think it has a huge impact on the society, on the cities as a whole, but also it's an opportunity for quite many, and especially for public transport. Because it starts with this. So if you imagine yourself, if you could have everything instead of all kinds of apps. Take Manhattan, you would need maybe 20 different apps that you get to compare all the time for getting around from lower Manhattan to upper Manhattan. What if you were to have everything from just one app? All the taxis, all the ride shares, all the ride hailing apps, all the car rentals, all the bike shares and public transport, everything in just one. Now the data exists, but that's just an enabler and an ingredient to all of this. But we are riding sort of a wave of these free APIs or open APIs starting to happen. And this is what we're trying to implement. And on the other hand, I like the comparison, maybe coming from Finland. We're still one way or another a mobile nation. But the comparison tends to work with the end users especially. That would you like to have your mobility needs the same way you buy your mobile subscription? You know, you have enough SMS, you have enough data, you have roaming, you have all of these things, and you have a different set of a subscription. And if you could, would you like to buy your mobility this way? And it's surprising. I've given a speech about mobility as a service for over 1,000 times. I remember it was someone here in Helsinki long time ago, many years ago, and I went and said, look, wouldn't this be something? And really it's doable. And I think it was Harri Pursiainen from the ministry that said, Sampo, to get this going, you'll have to give at least 500 speeches. Otherwise, there is not going to work. I've done over 1,000, and it's live now. The thing is, I can quote an American venture capitalist who said it nicely. Look, the issues in society that just one company or a group of companies can solve, they're done. All that's left are the big issues, and no one can do that alone. It's a thing where, you know, you have to sit around the table and figure this out all together. Because eventually, and I would argue, and I did this yesterday with urban planners, and there were some economists also there. Oops, it did break, no matter. With urban planners yesterday, I would argue that the biggest question for the economic growth, for the world economy, for any economy, for the coming decades is actually quite simple, and it's quite personal. I get to do this because you're public transport people. How many of you have a car? Come on. Oh. I did the same question in New York with over 100 people. 5 hands were raised. Really? 5. That it's yours. It's a single occupancy vehicle, one way or another. No, but the world is moving, and there were excellent things over there. Like, for example, the best thing I've seen for a while. They had valet parking for bikes in that office building. I loved it.
You have to ask how many has a company car instead of
No. It's if you have a car, whether it's bought by the company or yours, one way or another, it's a single occupancy vehicle, because that is the question. Now, think of it this way. It's so simple. I really do think, and I've done the same, and I've challenged quite many big economists, and they can't argue this. That's the biggest question for the world economic growth for the next decades is, what would I have to promise to you that you'd get rid of it? Simple as that. All you have to do is ask that. Not in a way of managing or anything, but you'd really want it. You'd be willing to pay for the same amount. What would I have to promise? And that's, at least for me, that's how the concept started. I mean, I tried to figure out, I'm a father of 4, we live pretty close here. Today I came here with the bus and walking because it's just much more nicer than using the car. But I thought, why on earth do we still have that car there? We're not using it or doing anything with it. And it has to do with this one thing. You have to ask, why do people have that? What would I have to promise? And it comes with the idea of freedom of mobility. I thought to myself, okay, most of the time I just use, and everybody in the family uses public transport, or we walk or we bike. But still we have the car there for the possible occasion that sometimes it's not there. In Finland it's always, yeah, I could do with that, but we have the summer house. And on average we go to summer house 5 times a year. It's a pretty expensive thing to have a big parking space and a car there just for those 5 trips. But people, because it's the notion that, look, freedom of mobility, and this is what in the company that I've been now running for a while, we've been asking the users times and times again, why, what is the essence of having a car? And it has to do with the freedom of mobility. So it's not about getting you from 1A to 1B. It's much more about all the A's and all the B's in your life. And the idea that, look, we'll get you there. Anytime, anywhere. And if you cannot deliver that, you're not actually in the market. Not so much. Because, and this is why I argue that it is one of the biggest, or probably the biggest question for economic growth. Of course, for many other issues, but why the car dealers, why the car OEMs are also so interested in this, because they do see that the potential is quite huge. Look, transportation, and I tried a long time ago, I started doing this because all my friends in telecom, they were saying that, yeah, you're in transport, that's small, that's nothing, the whole mobility. We in telecom, we're big. And they always talk about this ARPU. Yesterday I talked to a telecom operator and they got shocked about this. Average revenue per user. So how much money do we have to fulfill these needs? And for the whole telecom industry in Europe, it lies about 30 euros. That's how much we have on average for this. For mobility needs, 300. So it's 10 times bigger. If that's disrupted, of course it's huge. And why it's huge? Because 85% of that ARPU, 85% of that value lies with the private car. And now if that private car is only used about 4% of the time, at least you have to give me there's huge potential for productivity gains. But you can only crack open that formula if you provide the freedom of mobility. And this is where it gets hard. Now it seems that it's broken all of my slides with, with the last one, but I'll try to explain. Let's see if I can do it without the slides help. Now, this is where it gets a bit difficult, because of course, like I said, this is not something that I can solve alone. Look, I run a small startup that wants to be and is the world's first mobility operator, working on the layer of gathering, making sure that you have all the taxis in Helsinki now, you have all the buses and all the metros, and even the cars within that one. But it's a new layer of business, and we're nothing. I mean, I cannot come to any city, and we're going to Amsterdam next, and I cannot go to Amsterdam or Rotterdam or Birmingham or any of those places and say, look, I'll come in and I'll replace the public transport and the taxis and the car shares and all of these, and then I will provide mobility as a service, because you need all those ingredients. It won't happen that way. It only happens if you can build this in an ecosystem where it's done in an open way. And it also means that we're not going to get an exclusive deal for anyone. And it's a new layer of business trying to aggregate these things. Ooh, let's see if even these work. Okay, it's been 11 years. I looked at the first slides that I had about mobility as a service in a place where I was talking to civil engineers of construction and saying that, okay, things will change. And they all looked at me and he's lost his mind, but I've been persistent. with this, and for almost a couple of years I've been able to sort of live the dream and do it here first in Helsinki to try it out. Is it doable? Would people like it? Would they really go for it? Can we do it without huge technical integrations and all of this? And surprise, surprise, it is doable. It is quite doable, and there is a potential in it. What we've set out to do, and trust me, it looked better on the other one, to really have a monthly subscription for all transportation. It is for the young millennials, it's an issue. You could call them the Netflix nation, the young millennials. You know, it's easier. But it's also why the car is in many ways so good. You know, you purchase into it, you pay a big money, and you pay the insurance and all of this, and then you feel secure. But it's like the monthly pass also for public transport. But okay, here you have access to just about everything, with enough to take care of all your trips. Don't think of it as just a trip planner. Yes, it had pretty pictures as well before. Somehow things break when they shouldn't be. We didn't even want to do a trip planner. We have to have it within the app. We do have to have a trip planner. But if you think of it money-wise, no one is paying for a trip planner. You have €0 for a trip planner. You have 300 euros or more if you have a car. Actually, it's about 500 euros that you have for getting you there. That means that we really have to have all the payments in the background, everything done in a way that you don't see any of that anymore, and you feel comfortable with it. In a way, the business logic is quite simple. If we can plant the idea of a car into people's head and get that money out of them, but use as much walking, biking, public transport as possible, then we're making money. Otherwise, there's no money in it. Let's see if I can get the results. No, it seems it's blank, so I'll have to tell you. The results from Helsinki. We thought we've been running live and getting people's money. Actually, it was live already before, but from October we've been having a limited number of people that we wanted to go out and get their money and see how it works. Of course, one of the big issues for us is if we get a fixed rate out of them, we need to make sure that their modal split shifts. To be honest, that's the way we can make money, because just by being a ticket vending machine is not that. It started, we of course made a thorough study with them, so it started with their modal split for public transport was 48%. It jumped to 60%, and we thought that it would be like, okay, you go first like that, but it's been climbing ever since. So the latest figure was at 74 was the modal split for public transport, which was more than we expected, and it still keeps on rising for some reason. But it doesn't mean that the other partners in this would be losing, because if you take away the car, then there's lots more to be handled with. So our customers use roughly about 100 euro per month more for taxis as well. Because okay, hey, you took they need it every now and then, and for us it's we give them the taxi really easily. We give them the car really easily as well. Sixt and Veho here have been extremely helpful, and Hertz as well in opening up in easy ways the car. And we had to redesign a car so that if you're under subscription, you actually get it with 30 euros a day, which is easy, because we target the whole thing. Okay, how do we do it that we get rid of all the excuses? It's the 5% why you still have 5% of the trips that you still have the car for. And so many that would be willing to do that as long as somebody provides with an option that has enough stuff in it. At least I have some of these. This is the one that I really loved. We of course overstudy now the users that we have, and we always want to balance it with, okay, were we good enough to compete against car ownership? That you can leave it. There's been quite learnings. Mostly actually with public transport things are quite fine. Of course everything has to be developed, and we've learned that, you know, if you want to do this, we have to be the best partners towards those that actually provide the transportation. But there was a learning, especially with taxis. If you pay a monthly fee, there's no way. There was this one father of 3 that left his car, and twice on a Sunday. Can you believe that there are sometimes taxi drivers that are not marvelous? But it exists. Twice on a Sunday he had to go to practice, and he wanted to use the taxi for that. It was understandable. And the taxi didn't come. And that's just, if it would be just a taxi service, you would be okay, so the taxi didn't come. But with this one, no excuses. We cannot have that. So we were not able to open up actually before we had a fallback that we have all the taxis now in Helsinki, that we know that the availability is there, and we can actually guarantee some service level. It's hard learnings actually. And actually, for Finnish numbers, we've been open now for a couple of days, but we just haven't told that anyone yet, so please don't tell anyone. But it only opens with Finnish numbers. If you want to try it out while you're here, you give me your number and I'll whitelist you, because we've had quite many thousands on the waiting list without marketing, and we just cannot and don't want to push it too far too early without knowing also that we can deliver. Like with these things, you have to make sure that you can actually deliver, and that means you have to work all the time with the partners and with the customers. Was my time there?
Have a minute, no problem.
It seems my slides are out because they're all gone.
Thank you very much.
I would like to. The last slide was actually. I don't know. The quote is not exact. And remember that these are really early results, not an academic. You can't use it in that sense, but it shows maybe a curve. I did like, one way or another, the Helsinki approach that by 2025, wouldn't it be great that you could lead a perfectly good life without being forced to own a car? Because to be honest, now if you're suburbanized and you have 2 kids, you're forced to own a car. And there are so many of those that don't like it, but they're forced to it. So wouldn't it be great that you wouldn't have to?
What was the number of test users in Helsinki?
I think we're up in about 300 now, something like that. We're taking on more and more every time, all the time. And there's some thousands in the waiting or queuing list.
What about transferring the experience from the wind concept to interurban?
We'd like to get there as soon as we get the trains happening to do that, because now I don't like it. Now for the you go to another city, we have to give them a car. It's not cost effective for us. It's not smart. But sometimes there are technical issues that you just cannot solve. I know in many cases it is, it has to work everything from one app, and not everything is built for that. And now with the new legislation starting from next year, it should be that everybody in Finland has to have the digital API, whereas HSL has been helping and doing that. I know they've had system approaches, but they've been great partners, that even though they've been opening up to us. Next places we actually open in June. We're live in Birmingham. We start slowly there as well. Then the next target is Amsterdam, where everybody has been extremely inviting and easy going towards us, and it seems to move faster than we expected. So the September launch looks really good. Then of course, I hope Rotterdam and Antwerp would be a nice chain on that one.
It would be important for our users.
Yeah.
To have the same standard API.
Yeah.
Companies supplying the services. That you don't have to have a different app in every single city.
Now the dream would be, at least I have, that within all subscriptions. Now roaming is true with this one, but remember or not, but it wasn't obvious in the 90s. Sort of a dream. It could happen within a couple of years even, because everyone's coming up with mobile ticketing, mobile APIs. As long as the APIs are adaptable, I would love to give all my customers so that the basis is that within all subscriptions you have unlimited public transport within Europe. Wouldn't that be great? Wherever you go, that you can go, you can use it. That's a dream worth fighting for. And then the rest is sort of like, well, upon usage. Depends on, of course, what type of a package you have. But that would be great.
And the next question is from Ingrid.
What are the conditions you need from us as regional authorities? To make it happen, of course. Because I'm from Amsterdam and I've talked last Monday with 2 of your colleagues.
Yes. And they came out like, yes, this will happen.
No, I'm not sure, because I've sent them to the GVB.
Well, the conditions are quite simple. 2 things. We need to be able to purchase transportation. It normally starts, the domino starts with public transport. So if the city public, like here, When HSL opened up, the rest will normally follow. Yeah, it is true also in Amsterdam. HVB is the one that needs to be cracked over there. At least the rest have been quite easy, and I'm quite hopeful, confident on that one that it will open up. We need to be able to purchase tickets. And then the second thing is quite simple. There needs to be some sort of an API for opening up the sort of validating the ticket. Whereas here there's a visual ticket here that we've just embedded the exact same ticket. So it's an HSL ticket that I buy through this one, and looks exactly the same, and the inspection and so on is similar. So that is it. Nothing more needed. For the taxis, technical implementation is a bit different, but so on.
Specific, what do you want from us
As
as authorities?
authorities, there are of course 80 parameters. It's quite simple. Willingness. If there's willingness, there tends to be way. I mean, Birmingham was a nice showcase. The authority over there, TFWM. Yes, and I loved the approach over there. Just, you know, and you had extremely good guys present there, and with the approach, loved the idea. Don't have any money. Could we do this? And I said, yes, I love this approach, because, you know, we have to carry our own risk. But what TFWM has been doing is facilitating, helping, no exclusivity nor anything like that. We carry our own risk, but they've been helping in smoothing the way, because, you know, you have much more power than you often think. You do have, you know, power to say, okay, we kind of like this. Could we please sit around the table? It would have been impossible for us, or not impossible, but quite time and resource consuming without DFWM inviting all the TSPs to the same table and saying, oh, guys, do we like this? Should we go? Let's make a joint timetable, and everybody takes up their role. And that it's been easy cooperation in that sense.
In politics, that's the other, if you can get your politicians.
Yes.
That's probably the other place we could help, is having our politicians be very interested in it and wanting to support it, and that it was easier for us to enable them to come do their job.
Yeah, and then it sort of makes the decision for us to invest much easier, to say, okay, look, it seems that they're willing, they want to push for this. We all have risks, but at least, you know, the cooperation works. It tends to be also good people. We were in Birmingham also, we were extremely lucky with the guys that really wanted to push for the timetable and helped us on that one.
I would like to know how you deal with the steady state of the operators, like in Amsterdam. We met in a meeting in Amsterdam last year in a very hot room from AMS, and then you said, I don't know if I will still be in business when we go to Helsinki with EMTA, and I invited you to speak and to consider, and now you're still in business, but is your business still I would say independent and autonomous enough for you to drive the Amsterdam example?
It will consume quite a lot of capital, because this is, with this type of approach, when you go to subscription, it will start to be profitable. We now calculate from eligible population roughly between 3 and 5% of population before it becomes profitable. So it means that we have to have patient investors. Luckily, we have that, so that we have enough backing to actually do our part of it. But like in any one of these where you become an operator, you have to survive the early days and the pain for that.
The market structure that is in some countries really uniform or clogged is not impeding your development of your business, because they try to have diversity in the offer of the market, but basically when you have tendering, there are four large players that define the trunk of the network, and they make deals with the authorities, I think.
Yeah, I think that it's because, you know, it's not just public transport, it's other things that we also need. And look, if we, if we go to Birmingham and we have public transport, but we don't have the taxis over there, we can't get started. If we don't have, because we need, at minimum, we need public transport, we need taxis, and we need an access to car. And all of these have to sort of, in the same pace, open up. And varying from country to another, you know, transport is a huge business and it tends to be locally a bit different. So, but we try to make it simple. Now all we need is to be able to buy tickets, buy taxis, buy all of these, and then look for the places. We're now, I think we've looked over 60 areas. We're more actively looking at a bit over 20 areas. We want to open up 15 areas within the next year and a half. Yeah, it's about opening up and how fast. I know that there's lots of those clogs, but let's see if we can open up. One of the things is we have to be genuinely open ourselves, not trying to go for any exclusivities or anything like that. I know that my competition will use HSL just as well. I can't try to get into a position where I'd use that.
Thank you very much, Sampo. All the presentations will be given to Olivier, and all the presentations will be loaded to the EMTA web page, trust me.
With the pictures.
Yes, with the pictures, and congratulations, Sampo.